Welcome back to the functions unit. Today we're going to be starting the functions unit by taking a look at relations vocabulary. So let's go ahead and get started with that right now. So we need to start with a few key terms. The first key term is a relation. A relation is a relationship between a set of values, and relations show a connection between x values and y values. Now let's go ahead and take a look at that in a little bit further depth. So taking a look at this table here, we have the number of people listed on the left-hand side and the number of pets on the right-hand side. We've got some vocabulary terms that we're going to talk about and define. So we've got domain, range, independent variable, and dependent variable. Let's start with our table, however. On the left-hand side of our table, that's going to be our x value, or better known as the input. On the right side of the table, we're going to have the y value, also known as the output. Now when we're talking about domain is the set of all x values listed out by number. So you can see here that I've got a domain of 1, 3, 4, and 5. And one of the things you might notice is there are two important things to take away here. Number one are these braces on the outside of my numbers. Anytime that I'm going to be listing numbers, I need to have braces. And notice that although I have two 4s in my table, I've only listed one 4 in the domain. Because I'm just listing all the numbers that are there, I'm not interested in listing how many times I see them. So now we go moving on to the range. The range is the set of all y values, so you can see that I've listed all of them here. And since there are no repeating values in y, I'm going to have more y's, so 0, 1, 2, 5, 7. And again, I've written them in order from least to greatest. When we talk about the independent variables are going to be the words used to describe the input or the x value. And in this case, our x value talks about the number of people. So our independent variable is the number of people. The dependent variable is again words that are used to describe the y value. So in this case, the words to describe the y value are the number of pets. So domain and range deal with the numbers. Independent and dependent variables deal with the words. Now let's take a look at another example. Here we are at example A. And example A shows us a table where we have inches of snow across the top and number of snow days across the bottom. We need to identify the independent variable, the dependent variable, the domain, and the range. So the independent variable is going to be the thing that affects the dependent variable, or the x. And in this case, our independent variable is inches of snow. So our dependent variable by default, and the thing that's going to get affected, is the number of snow days. And that makes sense. The more that it snows, the more snow days we're going to have. The domain, so again, domain talks about numbers, so we're going to list out all of our numbers using braces. So in this case, 3, 8, 15, and 21. And I know that we have two 15s, but again, I'm not interested in how many I have, just that the 15 is in there. What is the range of this relation? Again, the numbers across the bottom, all listed out using braces in order from least to greatest, so 0, 2, 3, 4, and 7. Now let's move on to example B. Here we are at example B, and in example B they want us to take a look at a graph and find the independent variable, dependent variable, domain, and range. So let's start with the two variables by taking a look at the graphs along their axis. So I can see here that the age of the dog is along my x-axis, so that's going to make it my independent variable, so independent variable, age of the dog. Looking along my y-axis, I can see that weight of my dog is going to be my dependent variable, so weight of the dog, dependent variable. Now in order to find the domain and range, it's a little trickier. We have to go along the x the entire way to figure out where all the dots are for the domain. So if we do that, we can see that we have dots at 0.5 and at 1 and at 2 and at 3 and at 6 and at 7 and then at 8. So as we went along the side here, we can see that we got each one of those dots. So those how we're going to write them in the domain using our braces, of course. So 0.5, 1, 2, 3, 6, and 8, again in order from least to greatest. And then with the range finding, we need to start at the bottom and go our way to the top, again finding any numbers along the way. So we have here one at 5, we have another one at 10, one at 20, one at 30, one at 50, and one at 80. So we need to make sure that we've written those all down in our braces. Braces 5, 10, 20, 30, 50, 80. Cool. Make sure that we have our braces. Make sure we've written them in order from least to greatest. And let's go on to the next example. So here we are at example C, and this time it says which table has the domain of -2, 0, 4, and 5, and which table has a range of 3 and 4. So remember, domain, we're going to be looking for our x, range, we're going to be looking for our y. So in our domain, we're looking for -2, 0, 4, and 5. So looking at our first table, -1, that's not going to work out. Our second table, we've got -2 check, 0 check, 4 check, 5 check, so it looks like it's a good one. Let's just make sure it doesn't show up anywhere else. Letter C, -1, that's not going to work. Letter D, -1, that's not going to work. So our answer for that one is letter B. Now we're moving on to the range, and we need to have a range of only 3 and 4. So the first table, we've got 3 check, 4 check. However, we've got numbers in there that aren't in our range, which are 5, so A does not work. In B, we've got -1. No, that's not going to work. C, we've got -1. No, that won't work. And table D, we've got a 3, a 3, a 4, and a 4. All of those work. So our answer is table D. Now let's move on to the next example. Here we are at example D, and it says select all the numbers where all the members of the set are members of the domain. So we're looking for all these numbers to fit inside our domain, or our x. So since our line ranges between 2 on our x and 8 on our x, we're looking for sets that only contain numbers between 2 and 8. So our first one, we've got 3, that's between 2 and 8, 5 between 2 and 8, 6 between 2 and 8, so this one works. 1 between 6 and 8, or 2 and 8, absolutely not, so that does not work. 2.5, yes, that's between. 4, that's between. 7, that's between, so those all work, that's correct. 8 between, yes. 9, not so much, so that does not work. 0 does not work, so we only have 2 correct answers. Now let's take a look at example E. Here we are at example E, and it says select all sets of numbers where all the members of the set are members of the range. So in this case, we're looking for all numbers that are filling in our y's. So this time our line goes between 1 and 8. So we're looking for all the numbers between 1 and 8. So 3 between 1 and 8, yes. 4 between 1 and 8, yes. 5 between 1 and 8, yes. So this one works. 1 between, yes. 5 between, yes. 2 between, yes. And 3 between, yes. That works. 2.5 between, yes. 4 between, yes. 7 between, yes. That one works. 8 between, yes. 9, not so much. 10, not so much, so that does not work. 0 between, not so much, so that does not work. So we have 3 correct answers there. That brings us to the end of this example and these notes, which brings us to the end of this video. If you like this video, go ahead and throw us a thumbs up. If you love this video, go ahead and throw us a sub, and we will catch you in the next one.